Welcome to Magic Arcanum. I'm Ryan Gomez. Behind the scenes is Nicole Burdick, and we're so glad you're here because it's story time. Wilds of Eldraine returns us to the game's most enchanting plane and kicks off the post-Phyrexian invasion arc, in which Omen Paths and Desparked Planeswalkers have become the main focus. Within this set, you'll find over a dozen story spotlight cards meant to show the major events and characters from the official supporting story, available free online. But if you don't have time to read that and haven't yet collected all of the spotlights, that's okay, because I'm here to tell you what happens in Wilds of Eldraine. The story starts with Will and Rowan Kenrith visiting a knight named Sir Imodane, who has been offering protection from bandits to villagers in the countryside in exchange for payment. She also calls herself Queen, which Will cannot let stand. He's trying to unify the realm and take up the crown after his own father, the previous king, perished during the Phyrexian invasion. Mercenary knights claiming titles for themselves won't lead to the stability Will is after, so he challenges Imodane to a duel. If he wins, he promises to let her remain a knight, provided she stops taking advantage of the defenseless peasantry, and if he loses, he'll put himself and his own forces under her command and make her queen in name and deed. His twin sister Rowan hates this idea. She doesn't think Will is strong enough to defeat Imodane, who already lost an arm and had it replaced with one made of enchanted wood, by the way, and she doesn't want to see any more blood spilled, even if it is supposed to bring the realm together. Nevertheless, Will and Imodane go at it, and Will is almost immediately defeated before Rowan rescues him by firing off a bolt of lightning big enough to shatter a nearby mountaintop. It was impulsive, but she thought the display of power would help everyone chill out. Instead, Imodane flees into the woods in terror, and Will is less than happy with Rowan's outburst. As the dust settles from that, the story cuts over to a distant village so remote it was untouched by the Phyrexian invasion. And here we meet a 16-year-old boy named Kellen, who yearns for adventure. Mostly because the other kids in the village tease him and ask if the rumors about his parentage are true. They think he's really the son of a fae. And obviously, if you look at his card, that ends up being true, but we're not supposed to know that at this part of the story, so just play along, okay? Okay. Anyway, Kellen chats with his mom and stepdad about his trouble with bullies, but the whole time he's thinking about how he would rather be off in the woods. It's almost like the wilds are calling to him. We then rejoin Will and Rowan, now at Castle Vantris, where the mages are trying to uncover the secrets behind a magical sleep that has gripped the plane. This enchanted slumber was a big help during the Phyrexian invasion because it basically stopped the intruders in their tracks, but the effect has lingered even after the danger has passed, and nobody on Will's council has figured out why. Rowan is frustrated and argues with Will about strategy for moving forward. Both of them want to help people and fix the realm, but they are of different minds for how best to do that. Ultimately, Rowan decides to set out on her own, and she leaves the castle, believing her time at Strixhaven taught her to seek out magical solutions to magical problems. So that's what she's gonna go do. Meanwhile, Kellen is out for a stroll when a magical door suddenly appears before him, which he recognizes from his mother's stories as a fae's invitation to talk. He passes through the door and finds himself before Lord Talion, who asks Kellen if he is pure of heart. Kellen says he's not sure, but he'd like to be, and Talion implies they know Kellen's real father and would be willing to share that information if Kellen would complete a quest. Talion goes on to tell Kellen that 3 witches control the enchanted slumber, and if Kellen can defeat all 3 of them, he'll be a hero of the realm, and he'll earn himself the truth about his own origins. Kellen agrees to this, and now we have a nice little parallel going, with both Kellen and Rowan out looking for answers and trying to save the realm on their own. As it turns out, Rowan would get a little push to move her along as well. One night, she has a dream in which her mother and father appear, and they tell her to come back to Castle Ardenvale, which has been abandoned since the invasion. Her father even says her blood awaits her there, which prompts Rowan to set off on her own grim search for the meaning of this vivid yet mysterious dream. Around the same time, Kellen is about to touch a sleeping man out of curiosity when he is stopped by a girl named Ruby, who tells him that the enchanted slumber seems to be spreading, but nobody's quite sure how. Even so, it's probably wiser not to touch someone under the curse. Ruby then tells Kellen he should stop asking where the nearest witch is, because everyone in town knows he's looking for one now, and drawing a witch's attention to yourself is never a good idea. Kellen then asks Ruby for useful advice, and she says, well, you should really talk to my brother Peter, because he knows these lands better than anyone, but I haven't seen him in several days myself. Realizing this could be the first step in his noble quest, Kellen pledges to help Ruby find her brother, and so the 2 of them set off together into the nearby forest. They walk for a bit, with Ruby explaining the presence of the Phyrexian corpses to Kellen, who hadn't seen one yet, when they are suddenly attacked by a fearsome-looking knight in wolf armor. The 2 make a run for it, with Ruby leading the way, and they stumble right into a den of witch stalkers, which are known to attack magical creatures. Ruby plows right through them, and Kellen follows, nervous because he knows he might be at least half Fey, and thus magical himself, but the stalkers let him pass, and then they turn their attention to the following wolf knight. It's the knight's turn to run, chased by the stalkers, which gives the kids a chance to notice the cabin in a nearby clearing. It's dark with glowing windows, and it's surrounded by purple mist, so Kellen correctly figures the witch he's looking for lives here. He sneaks closer to peer inside. He sees the witch, who is named Agatha, tending to her cauldron, and tied up next to it is a knight, who Ruby explains is about to be turned into stew. The sudden return of the Wolf Knight forces Kellen into action. He goes into the house and charges at Agatha and knocks her into her own bubbling cauldron. He then works to untie the captured knight, who we recognize is Eldraine, who was also tasked by Talion to kill Agatha, but she was defeated by the witch's champion. That champion is now entering the house, and Eldraine is in no shape to fight him, but fortunately she won't have to, because the Wolf Knight takes off his helmet and reveals himself to be Ruby's brother, Peter. He had been cursed by Agatha, but with her boiling alive in the cauldron, the spell was broken, and he is relieved to see his sister is unharmed. Peter offers to help however he can as thanks for freeing him from his service to the witch, and Kellen gets him to drag the cauldron outside, where another door to Talion's court has already opened. With the cauldron serving as proof of Agatha's defeat, Kellen is given information about his second target. But first, he must make a detour up a beanstalk to consult the magic mirror Indrellon, which has apparently been stolen by giants. Before we can get to that, though, things switch back over to Rowan, who has made her way to what remains of Castle Ardenvale. It is now a restless fortress, filled with slumbering knights she used to know and train with. The knights attack her, their bodies moved into action by the wispy tendrils of purple smoke that signify the enchanted sleep. Rowan tries to be merciful and push them back rather than harm them, but eventually they start to overwhelm her, so she justifies more drastic measures by saying it's the only way to end this quickly. Eventually, Rowan makes it through the knights and comes face to face with Ashiak, a planeswalker who still has a spark, and has been serving as a sort of mentor to someone here in the castle. Ashiak clarifies they are not responsible for the slumber magic, but agree to introduce Rowan to the witch who is, and that's Ariat, waiting in the next room. Ariat says it's an honor to finally meet Rowan, who she notes looks a lot like her mother. Rowan considers that a sick joke because Rowan's real mother was a witch who had intended to drink Rowan and her brother Will's blood shortly after they were born, before they were rescued by Lyndon, who then adopted them both. But Ariat continues to talk, and she eventually wins Rowan over with her charm and sincerity. She says she admires the fire within Rowan, and she understands how frustrating it must be to deal with her brother and the other people in the realm who don't respect her power. She also says that, like Rowan, she would do anything to protect the realm and keep its people safe, and that's why she used the enchanted sleep to slow the Phyrexian invaders. Ariat says it's regrettable that the magic continues to spread, but even so, you can't deny things are more peaceful, and people are finding happiness in their dreams. And isn't that better, in a way? While Rowan ponders this, Ariat drops one more bombshell. She's the sister of the witch that gave birth to the twins, which makes her Rowan's aunt. And she tells Rowan she's got witch blood within her, which she should learn to embrace. Overwhelmed by this connection and feeling compelled to use her power to help the realm find peace, Rowan pledges herself to Ariat, while Ashiak watches from the corner. We then rejoin Kellen and Ruby, who are climbing their way up the beanstalk. Helping them with this is their new friend and my personal insert character for Eldraine, Troyan, a Videlkin from Ravnica, brought here by Omenpath. Yeah, I'm not really sure if Chillane is still alive at this point, so I guess now I'm the bald guy who added 2 extra letters to my first name and took it for his own. Anyway, the trio reaches the top of the beanstalk and makes their way into the giant's cloud castle, hoping everyone will be asleep since it's the middle of the night. Of course, that would be too easy, so the giants are wide awake and having a party, which means our heroes have to time their steps to the music to avoid getting squashed underfoot by the waltzing behemoths. It's a fun scene with some playful banter, and Kellen takes a moment to reflect on how far he's come from his own little hamlet, where sheep outnumber humans. He's really happy to be with people he already considers his friends, and now if he could just find that missing mirror. Unfortunately, before they can locate it, they are caught by Baluna Grandsquall, who is very unhappy to find pests in her home during her own birthday party. Fortunately, before Baluna can toss them out, she is stopped by Lord Yorvo, a giant known to be friendly to humans and other creatures smaller than himself, which is a lot of them. Yorvo convinces Baluna to let Kellen and his friends use the mirror because he loves a good quest, and so they head to the bedroom where the mirror is stored. Ruby explains that the mirror won't tell them where the second witch is located unless they tell the mirror something it doesn't know in return, and Troyan helps out by revealing he wasn't born here in Eldraine. The mirror considers this a worthy trade and reveals the location of the next witch, so we're off to Loch Lariant, which is covered in ice. First, though, is a brief stop at Ruby's home, where stories about Kellen and Ruby are already spreading. The tale of how they defeated the man-eating witch is now a puppet show, and kids in the street dress in cloaks with red hoods, copying Ruby's style. Peter gives them his warmest gear and says there's no shame in asking for help, but Kellen is set on proving he's worthy of the boon Lord Talion has promised him, and so he and Ruby set off for the lands frozen by the witch called Hilda. After some travel time, they reach Hilda's ice castle and attempt to approach it before the witch's disembodied voice warns them to stay away. The wind picks up and the temperature drops, but Kellen and Ruby press onward, trying to reach the castle gate. They are stopped by frost guardians, and things look bleak until Kellen takes out his weapons. These are a pair of basket hilts, given to him by Lord Talion, but he hadn't figured out how to make them work until now. In desperation, he swings with the hilts, and they suddenly emit glowing blades which slice through the icy elementals. Kellen makes short work of those guards, but his moment of kindled heroism fades as the cold consumes him. He falls to the ground, exhausted. Ruby scoops him up and carries him forward, refusing to quit, even as Hilda continues to challenge her. The witch asks why she would risk her life for this boy to whom she owes nothing. And Ruby simply says, "It's the right thing to do, and people don't have to owe each other anything to help each other." She trudges through the snow, carrying and then dragging Kellen as her own limbs start to lock up from the cold before being reduced to just crawling through the castle gate. There, she is met by Hilda, who is impressed by the compassion shown by Ruby. Hilda realizes her desire to find protection through isolation has caused her to miss out on relationships like this, and so she gives the children a magical kiss to protect them from further harm by the cold. Ruby passes out, but soon wakes again inside the castle, where Hilda is eager to speak with her and Kellen, who is also present and recovering from the cold. Kellen warns Hilda that they already killed Agatha, and Hilda says, yeah, she probably deserved that. She explains how her sisters always sought power, while she just wanted to be left alone. She then offers the children her crown to use as proof of her defeat with Lord Talion. She says without it, she cannot maintain a large ice castle, just a small house for herself, and she promises not to threaten anyone anymore. In fact, she says she has one other gift for Kellen and Ruby, and it is a gift of information. She says the next time they speak to the Fey Lord, they should know the truth. She reveals that Lord Talion worked with the three witches to enact the sleeping spell, which would have been too big for any of them to do alone. And now, Talion is using the kids to clean up the mess the Fey helped create. Sure enough, as soon as they step outside Hilda's melting castle, there is a door waiting to take them to Lord Talion. Kellen expresses displeasure at being lied to, and the Lord says, it wasn't really a lie so much as maybe an omission of detail. But either way, the realm still needs to be saved, and the final task is to defeat Ariat. The promise of revealing Kellen's father also remains valid if the kids are able to complete the quest. With tears in his eyes, Kellen accepts, and we enter the final chapter of the story, which opens at Castle Ardenvale. The kids make their way inside and are, at first, happy to see Rowan Kenrith in the throne room. They figure she made her way here to defeat Ariat, same as them, and they're thrilled to have a skilled and powerful knight already here to help them. Rowan is standing in front of a lectern covered with notes, and she is not happy to see the kids suddenly appear in the room. She tells them to leave, before Kellen is able to read a slip of paper that says, Attempt 23, haven't been able to put anyone to sleep except the old-fashioned way. As Kellen realizes what this means, there is a brilliant white flash, and the next thing he knows, he's waking up in the castle prison, sharing a cell with Ruby. Ruby tells him Rowan tried to cast a spell on him while he was out, but got interrupted by the arrival of the cavalry and had to leave the kids. Ruby overpowered their guards and even got their weapons back already, so the pair go off to find Rowan again. Sure enough, up in the throne room, a battle is already playing out. Will has arrived, along with his knights, which now include Imodane, and Ariat is using her sleepers to fight them off. While Ariat has numbers, Will has tactics, and so Rowan tries to make up the difference by adding her raw power to the battle, since Ashiak has already left to attend matters on another plane. Rowan and Will come face to face, and she tries to explain that Ariat is their aunt, and they have witch blood, and by working together, they can grant the realm a peaceful existence. Will is not really moved by any of this. He is sad his sister has strayed so far from what their father taught them, and he begs her to let this all go and come home to be with their younger siblings before it's too late to undo everything. Rowan then realizes Kellen and Ruby have returned and are attacking Ariat directly, so she leaves Will to go save the witch. She tries to blast her way through the rest of the knights, but her attacks are stopped by a wall of ice conjured by her brother, who tells her plainly that this isn't gonna work. Rowan then turns to attack Will again, and this time she's stopped by Imodane, who says, "Don't you get it? He's gonna be the one to reunite the realm. Even I can see that now." Rowan says, well, Will isn't the only one with friends, as Ashiak emerges from the shadows and assumes control of the sleepers, who now move with a new level of grace and ferocity. Ashiak is challenged by Kellen, who manages to hold them in place long enough for Will to strike with a bolt of ice that skewers Ashiak and forces them to planeswalk away. Ruby, meanwhile, gets close enough to Ariat to put a knife to her throat, and Rowan realizes the battle is all but lost. Through a final bit of curse magic, Ariat tells Rowan to flee and bide her time. She says this isn't over yet, and these people are too soft to kill her, so they'll get another chance, but only if Rowan isn't caught too. So, Rowan fires off a huge thunderbolt, which launches her upwards and out of the castle, allowing her to escape, while Ariat is taken into custody by Will and his surviving knights. Things start to wrap up. Kellen returns to the land of the Fae, and then home to his small village, where he chats with his mom. He says he told Talion he would rather hear the truth about his father from his mom, when she thought he was ready. And Mom agrees that time is now. She explains how long ago she met an enchanting fae named Oko, who confided in her that he wasn't from Eldraine, but wanted to learn all about it from a beautiful woman. Over the years, they fell in love and eventually had a child together. But Oko was too much of a free spirit to stay here on Eldraine, and he eventually began to hate the place when he learned how poorly people treated the mother of his child. Finally, about 3 years ago, he came back to Kellen's mother one more time, but by then she had settled into her life and realized she would never be the queen Oko wanted her to be. At the very least, this explains his obsession with causing mischief on Eldraine, which was a major part of the story on our first visit here. Kellen's mother goes on to tell him everything he wants to know about his mysterious father, but that night, Kellen is unable to sleep. He finds himself wondering why Oko never revealed himself to him, and feared he might have been unworthy of his father's love and attention. So Kellen takes a walk outside to clear his head, and almost as if answering his own doubts, he comes across an omen path. Without knowing where it will lead, Kellen steps through it, eager to prove himself ready for more adventures. The final scene is between Ariat and Ashiak, who returns to the plane to visit the witch in her holding cell. Ashiak tells Ariat that Rowan is not yet ready to help them, and so they must travel far to collect new servants and learn new powers. Ariat readily agrees, and things fade to black with the cell left empty, implying Ashiak had a way to transport Ariat off the plane. And that's it. That's what happens in Wilds of Eldraine. To recap, Will and Rowan Kenrith disagree on how best to help the plane after the Phyrexian invasion. Rowan sets off to find answers for the magical sleep that grips the realm, while we meet a boy named Kellen, eager to learn about his own father. Kellen befriends Ruby, and together they seek to complete a quest given by a fairy named Lord Talion. Kill 3 witches, which are responsible for the enchanted slumber. This ultimately leads to a confrontation between Rowan and Will, where their aunt, a witch named Ariat, is working with the planeswalker Ashiak to keep Eldraine under their control. The resourceful Kellen and Ruby help defeat the witches and break the spell, and we learn Kellen was the child of Oko, a planeswalker who visited Eldraine many times in the past. With the slumber curse dispelled, things are looking bright for the plane, but Rowan is still out there, and Ariat and Ashiak might also be on the loose, leaving Will in an uncomfortable spot as he continues to do his best to reunite the realm and rebuild after the Phyrexian invasion. Kellen, meanwhile, takes his first steps into the multiverse thanks to a convenient omen path. It's a story filled with young heroes looking to make a name, and tired planeswalkers haunted by the loss of their friends and family, looking to restore order to a fractured world. I think the Story Spotlight cards do a pretty good job showing the major events this time around, but as always, there's some room for improvement, which we shall address in a little segment I like to call the Mustache Minute. Ready? Here we go. Ashiak has more presence in the cards than they do in the story. We've got several cards with a nightmare theme to them, which implies Ashiak was actively engaging in attacking folks, or that the people in the enchanted sleep were having a bad time. But Ariat tells Rowan pointedly that this isn't the case. Everyone sleeping is supposedly at peace, and while their bodies do enter combat under Ariat's control, they're still just their regular self, not a nightmare like we see on cards. So it's an odd disconnect, and it kind of takes away from the lure of Ariat's promise. Rowan sides with the witch because she truly wants people to be at peace. But if there were nightmares everywhere, like the cards show, then Rowan probably wouldn't believe Ariat, right? I like that Ruby got to have a legendary card in the set, even if it is somewhat underpowered, thanks to being an uncommon. Her brother wasn't so lucky, since he's the generic Agatha's champion, but I understand they wanted to give all 10 color pairs a signpost for draft, so. My favorite new character is definitely Troyan, not just because we look like twins separated at birth, but because he's a great example of how omen paths can affect the story without being the central focus. He's obviously an outsider to this world, but it is his home for now, and even though Kellen is suspicious of him at first, his skills end up being super useful, so that's a lot of fun. Conversely, we had only one sparked planeswalker in this set, which was Ashiak, who showed up to, I don't really know. They were said to be mentoring Ariat, but then they had to leave to attend business elsewhere, only to return at a crucial moment in the final chapter. Then they left again, then came back again to rescue Ariat. It just felt really random, and I don't think it added anything to the story, but I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Also, on the cards, we had several of these werefox people, with flavor text mentioning a place called Redtooth Keep, but we never go there, nor get any information about it. So while that's fine in a world-building sense, it feels kind of tacked on to me, and that's too bad because the Wilds already had such a great vibe to it. It didn't really need random mysteries like this. The fairies are cool, still showing up in multiple colors, each with their own sort of personality. You got helpful ones, dangerous ones, and ones that are just straight up annoying. We've also got Rankle's prank, but I'm not sure what to make of that because he doesn't appear anywhere in this story. So I guess we just have to assume he somehow survived the events in Aftermath and is now misbehaving off camera. We also never learn what becomes of Lord Talion. Were they punished for their involvement in the Slumber Curse? I can't say. Ultimately, the parallels in this story are some of the best bits. We've got Will and Rowan driven apart as family, while we've got Kellen and Ruby coming closer together as friends. Rowan and Kellen are both eager to prove they've got what it takes to save the realm, and are doing so in the shadow of their father figures. Wilds of Eldraine manages to be a melting pot of other fairy tales while still basically being one itself, which is really cool. I'm quite happy with how believable characters act and how clear their motivations are. Agatha wants to eat people, Hilda wants to be left alone, and Ariat wants power. The revelation that there was a fourth sister who connected them to the Kenrith twins kind of stretches the premise a bit, but it did give Rowan a reason to want to work with her aunt, so I think it evens out. And then we've got Kellen and Oko, which was a pretty efficient way to justify the Fae's meddling in affairs on Eldraine 3 years ago. Having him fall in love with a local, only to become angry at a world for not loving her the same way he did, explains his actions, even if we don't agree with them. The missing piece here for a lot of people, I'm sure, is Garrick, who we haven't seen since our previous visit to the plane. He's supposed to be out there hunting for Oko and protecting the Kenrith twins, but perhaps his spark is also ruptured and he is now stranded somewhere in the multiverse. Oh, and the other uncommon legends don't appear anywhere in the story either, but that's fine, because you could take them and you could tell your own fairy tales with a twist. But where will you start? Will you help Kellen explore beyond Eldraine? Will Hilda finally make a friend? Or will Ashiak and Ariat return with a vengeance and terrorize the plane once more? Let me know down in the comments, and then make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the great stories you'll only find here on Magic Arcanum. We'll see ya!